Whew. And we're back in the beautiful trails. I got my man Mario Fraioli here. Coach Nate, as usual, you guys know me. Today we're talking about strength training and run technique for ultra running. Mario, what do you got for us today?
We're going to talk about why it's important as a trail and ultra runner to be a stronger, more resilient, more well-rounded athlete, and how we can develop that athleticism. And then I'm going to give you some specific techniques that you can implement in your training while you're running, but also when you're not.
Love it. Let's do it, guys. Hey, thanks to UCAN Nutrition for sponsoring today's video. Stick around a little later on to hear a message from us just on how we use UCAN Nutrition and how we think it can help your running too. So Mario, let's start things off this way. If runners aren't strong enough for their ultra, what starts to happen to their running, their run technique and the race?
Well, a couple things. Number one, you're setting yourself up for almost inevitable injury because you're gonna be out there for a long time. So if you start breaking down mechanically, if you're not strong enough to handle the demands of the race, all that stuff is gonna fall apart, and when you're vulnerable like that is when you're most likely to get injured. Number two, you might not hit your goal. If you have this goal to hit maybe a 50K or 50 mile in a certain amount of time and you've broken down by the end of the race, you're not going to hit your goal because you weren't strong enough. So it's important to work on your strength and your overall athleticism and durability for those two reasons, if nothing else.
Yeah. Now with running, we primarily see it, or it can be primarily seen as this aerobic activity, something that is largely cardiovascular. We need to do a lot of training systems for that. But you've mentioned a lot about strength here. So what is it about ultra running that requires that you be strong?
Well, it is very aerobic. It can also be anaerobic at times too, depending on the part of the course that you're at and how hard you're pushing. But I like to use a car analogy. So, what do you have in a car? You have a big engine, and that is what's going to propel it forward. It's no different than your body and your cardiovascular system. But you also have the frame. And if the frame is not strong enough to support the engine, bad things happen. That's when the car breaks down, doesn't run quite as well as it used to. In our bodies, that's when injury occurs, and you've got to really fortify that frame so that it can house the engine. So I don't care how big your engine is, if the frame is not strong enough, you're not going to be able to tap into the power of that engine.
I love that. So really, like, you could have all this big engine work, but if your wheels are falling off and you're blowing out your suspension and tires are out of alignment, you're not going anywhere.
Well, let's keep going along those lines. I mean, if you think of yourself as an ultra runner, you're an all-terrain vehicle. So, you are in environments that you're not in on the road. So, an all-terrain vehicle is way different than your roadster, right? So, I mean, you have to, those shocks, those struts, that's like, a lot of our stabilizers in our feet, in our ankles, in our knees, in our hips. Like, you've really got to reinforce those to a degree that maybe, you should do that for road running anyway, but you can get away with it like a bit more like in road running because it's a bit more uniform and you're not dealing with quite as much. But you really have to make sure that you're sturdy and able to handle anything that ultra race is going to throw at you.
Love it. So in this next clip we're going to talk some about what those strength workouts and exercises should look like. So Mario, a couple years ago you helped me train for my first 50K, and then you ran your first 50 miler at the North Face race in San Francisco. How did you use UCAN in your 50 mile?
So I should backtrack a little bit. I had used UCAN in marathon training previously with great success. So I knew that when I was going to go longer and I was going to literally need more energy to get me through the 50-mile distance, that I was going to rely on UCAN as one of my main sources of fuel before the race. And the big difference for me in the 50-mile versus the marathon is I doubled up the serving. I actually put 2 packets into a shaker, shook it up, and had that as my pre-race breakfast along with a banana and a little bit of a energy bar.
Oh, there we go. And you felt pretty darn good going through that 50 miler.
Yeah, I did.
As good as one could feel.
From an energy standpoint, yeah, I felt great all day. I mean, I had very steady energy throughout the day. I was out there about 8 hours. I was fueling during, but I think that foundation that I had laid in the morning is what set me up for success that day.
That's awesome. Well, if you want to take advantage of the same energy stuff that got UCAN that got Mario to the finish line of the 50 miler and me to the end of my 50K. You can get 5 packets for $10.
Great deal.
Including free shipping. All you need to do is click the link below in the description of this video, and we will send that to you. You get 3 energy packets and then 2 energy packets with protein included. Let's get back to the rest of this video, huh?
It's a good deal. Yeah.
All right.
Should.
All right, we got to run to our next spot. You ready?
Feels good to be moving. Yeah, I'm ready.
Feels good to be moving. Nora's ready.
Nora's been ready. Nora's been crushing.
So Mario, we've talked a lot about how runners do need to be better athletes, especially for ultra, and getting into the gym is part of that equation. So how do you think about strength training for yourself and for your athletes?
Well, you do my thinking for me. So I go into the gym with you once a week, along with a number of my athletes, to work on movement, on general strength, on just making myself a more well-rounded, resilient athlete. And we do, I'm not going to speak completely for you, but we do a lot of squatting, a lot of hinging, a lot of lunging, a lot of lateral movement, and putting those pieces together and trying to understand how they translate to what I'm doing out on the trail, and just some of the different movements that are involved in trail and ultra running.
Yeah, I think squatting and hip hinging, what you're referring to, anything that looks like a deadlift or single leg deadlift or kettlebell swing is so great for getting that much needed posterior chain firing, those glutes, those hamstrings, and those calves.
Yeah, and if you think about what's happening during an ultra race or just a trail run in general, the amount of loading that's occurring, and it's a different type of loading that happens when you're running flat on a track or on a road, and we do a lot of stuff in the gym to help simulate that and really supplement the work that I'm doing out on the trail.
Now, another important part of strength is mobility and range of motion, and I know that we've been working on your feet and your ankles a little bit.
Yeah, I have finicky feet and ankles, to put it lightly, and we've just been working on improving that, improving that range of motion, like going a little bit deeper in my squat, getting up a little bit more, on my toes, because the more range of motion mobility that you have on the trail, the more agile you can be, and that's a good skill to have when you're a trail and ultra runner.
And I think one of the important messages here is that this range of motion is not just going to be bestowed upon me, especially as I'm, an older human on this planet, and I do the normal things most humans do, where they drive in a car, they sit at a desk, and then they go out and run. And running gives me some range of motion, and it has incredible health benefits. But running alone doesn't give us the mobility and range of motion we need to be the runners we want.
No, it takes work, and it takes consistent work. And I go to the gym with you once a week for an hour or so, but I have to take a lot of those, like we call them take-home techniques, and my wife is very good about making sure I do these on a more regular basis than just once a week, because whether it's running, whether it's strength and mobility, the key is consistency. You've got to be doing things consistently well to notice a difference over time.
So if you're the ultra runner who's like, oh man, I've signed up for this big race, I have to do all these miles, I don't have time to get into the gym, what do you say to that person?
Make the time, and it doesn't have to be a huge chunk of time. I mean, my at-home mobility routine is 10 to 15 minutes, but I do that almost every day, and so that adds up. That's like 60 to 90 minutes a week of additional work that I'm doing in these small chunks, and I can do it while I'm watching TV, I can do it while dinner's cooking. Most of us can find that time. It's just a matter of making the effort to find that time.
Hey, and it's also what you signed up for when you signed up for that ultra.
Yeah,
that's cool. So the next piece we're going to get into is actually some of the strength style workouts we can do to really help reinforce good running technique out on the trails.
Cool.
So we've got athletes in the gym, we're working on our strength and mobility and range of motion, but we need to carry it back outside. So what do you recommend runners do in their run workouts?
We want to be careful not to overcomplicate it. So the two things that I have my runners focus on are maintain a short stride and a quick cadence, and to be light on your feet. And regardless of whether you're running flat, you're running uphill, you're running downhill, that's good practice. You can't run up a hill with a really long stride. If you try to do that and you got this long, like loping stride, you're going to be all over the place. So you want to have nice short strides, you're getting your knees up a little bit, you're keeping that core nice and tight and really efficient. Again, and this is something that you've worked on in the gym that's translating to outside. You're keeping that core nice and tight so that you can stay upright. You're keeping that pressure off of your lower back, and you're driving yourself up the hill. When you're running downhill, you want to keep short strides because you're going to have more control. And control is important when you're running downhill because you don't want to fall, and you don't want to beat up your legs too much. So
especially on those steeper descents.
Exactly. You want to try to, you know, lessen the blow as much as you can. It's a huge toll on your quads. You're running downhill, you're coming down with 3 to 5 times your body weight, if not more. So keep it a nice short stride, nice quick feet, and again, being light on your feet so that you can react well if there's a rock or if there's a root or you need to dodge something. Like if you're landing too heavy, you're not going to be able to react to the terrain. So it's important that you stay light on your feet, and the best way to do that is with a nice short efficient stride.
I like that. So those are some great, you know, cues for runners to think about and remind themselves when they're doing a lot of their runs. Are there any, you know, specific drills or exercises or parts of a run workout where you would deliberately add some of this work in?
Well, we can go through just some of the core drills that any runner should be doing, whether they're training for trail and ultra or they're training for marathon or track, and that's a lot of the A-skips, high knees, quick feet, karaoke, that type of stuff is really important. But one thing you just touched on, which I think is really important when you're out there, is giving yourself that cue. And I think a good cue is quick and light, quick and light, quick and light. And if you're thinking about that as you're running downhill, your head's gonna be in the right place to tackle the terrain that you're running on.
Oh, I love that. Well, thanks, Mario. That is super helpful.
Do you want to run through some of those drills that I had just described?
Why don't we run through some of those drills that you just described? I like that. That's a good idea. So we got some A-skips here. Nora, you're not doing your A-skips, dog. So, quick add-on, we just went through some drills real quick. How often should runners, ultra runners, work on those drills?
You can do them 2 to 4 times a week, and 2 of those times per week can be before some of your key workouts as part of your warm-up. So you might jog for 15, 20 minutes, run through a set of those drills. That's gonna get the right things firing. It's gonna prime you for the faster running to follow, and then maybe once or twice a week after that, after an easy run. Should only take 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, but that 5-10 minutes adds a big impact to your running form and your training overall.
Well, like we had talked about all the other stuff, you got to do it consistently and it adds up. So 5 minutes, you know, a few times a week, that could be half an hour a week, 20, 30 minutes a week that you're working on your form and your technique. And that turns into hours a month and many hours a year. And when you're doing that consistently, you're going to see big changes and big benefits.
Nice, I love that. That's a good way to put a pin in it, Mario, as you like to say in the podcast.
How about now?
Now we're rolling.
We're rolling, okay.
We are in the beautiful Marin Headlands right now. Not the Headlands.
No, we're not in the Headlands. We're in your backyard.
My backyard, you know what I'm thinking about. This is gonna be something that we save, but we are gonna start over. And we're rolling.
Are we?
We're rolling.
Okay, thank you guys so much for, let's just start that all over again.
And we're rolling.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just as a reminder, you can take advantage of UCAN's special offer. You can get 5 packets of their Performance Energy drink mix, and then also Performance Energy plus protein drink mix for $10. And I believe there's free shipping on that too. Details are down below
in that description. And if you like Mario being on our channel, hit that like button down below. If you have any comments or questions for either of us on some of the strength and run form things we talked about, really just hitting the tip of the iceberg. We got a lot more to say on the subjects, of course. And you should subscribe to our channel, guys, because we've got a lot more videos on these very topics, including with this guy right here. And speaking of, we're gonna continue to get a tan and do some more filming.
Yeah.
These beautiful trails. See you guys.